Hey there, welcome to The Boiling Point. I'm your host, Michael Boyle. Everything we do at Altogether Academy is designed to help our community hardwire courage, resilience, contribution, and joy, even if hard times happen. My goal for this podcast is to leave you feeling inspired and empowered with practical, perhaps even profound, ideas and tools to make your life a place worth loving. If you'd like to go deeper and explore a complete and traversable path with maps, tools, instructions, camaraderie, and support, all in one place, you can join the Joyful Excellence Mastermind community, where for a fraction of the cost of typical therapy, you can get so much more. Or you can sign up for our free newsletter, check out our blogs and books, take the 30-day reset from surviving to thriving, all by visiting the Altogether Academy website. Please enjoy this free episode and reach out with any questions or requests for me to speak on certain topics here or to an audience near you. Love to all. Together we thrive. All right, everybody, welcome back to The Boiling Point. This is going to be an episode about something that I'm working with right now live in my own personal life, and which is always the case. You know, if you're working with someone that's not doing the work or doesn't practice what they teach, I think it's an obvious thing. But really, if you're working with someone that is not coming live with things that are real and relevant, then maybe you want to consider working with someone else. So here's the thing: I did a version of this podcast the other day, and I am re-recording it because I was coming at it with the wrong energy. I think I had one too many cups of coffee and was coming at it a little bit intense. And I do feel very, very passionately about this subject, and I do feel very strongly about it. But we also need to balance that with kindness and consideration for the legitimacy of the challenges that we're facing. And I think that, you know, you're going to hear me maybe talk about this pretty frequently, but I think that, you know, we have a pendulum swing thing going on culturally in terms of, you know, self-help or therapy or just the way we orient to challenges and stress and whatnot. And the pendulum used to be, at least the way I grew up, was a lot more towards the suck it up, you're fine, pretend it doesn't hurt, just push through it. You know, a type of denial, a type of avoidance, or pretend it doesn't exist. And then we, in some aspects of culture, have swung the pendulum too far as an overcorrection to the other side of everything is an overwhelm, and we, you know, creating a mountain out of a molehill and almost over-validating our wound stories and our victim stance, and a sort of disempowered consciousness that doesn't recognize how really gritty we actually are and need to be in order to thrive. And I'd like to invite the pendulum back to the middle ground and say that, you know, we can be open-hearted, we can be tender, we can recognize that things are challenging. We can start with kindness, we can start with acceptance, and we can elicit our grit and our fortitude and our courage, and instead of avoiding it or denying it or pretending it's not as tough as it is, or instead of kind of getting stuck and feeling disempowered about how overwhelming everything is, we can feel it to heal it, and then we can move through it together with courage, with tools, with skills, with support, and realize that things are actually challenging enough that I don't know how people are doing it without tools. I do not know how people are thriving. Well, I do know, because people aren't thriving. If you look around and you say, oh my God, most people are overwhelmed. Most people are living in what I call survival mode most of the time. Most people are activating the neurochemicals that are responsible for literally saving their life from an immediate death threat. And they are living from that neurochemistry when they're in traffic, when they're the way they're orienting to having to do laundry, when they're trying to get their kids out of the house to school, when, and so where most people are living in survival mode. And the problem is that system does not allow for joy. It does not allow for, that's not the system for that. It's the system for surviving. And it doesn't care about joy. It doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about creativity. It doesn't care about we. It cares about me. It cares about self-preservation. It cares about, it doesn't give resources for healing. It's not about long-term immunity. It's about short-term immediate threat. And so it really is counterproductive. And that being said, it's so easily triggered. It's so everywhere. And we have this herd part of our brain that is so easily triggered by what's going on around us that if we do not have tools to contain that, to transform that, it's an absolutely unreasonable expectation to thrive. And so I want to offer a huge dose of compassion for people that are not doing, I'm like sitting here going, wow, I meditate and I breath work and I have all these life hacks and nutrition and I get to bed and I'm getting great sleep and it's still hard. And people think, oh, but that's overwhelming. I don't have time for that. Well, we got to make time for that. And this is the part where I really need to be kind of strong about it. It's like, if you do not make these disciplines a priority, I was listening to my mentor speak recently, and he said that it's just, the fact of the matter is that we have to pay attention to our body mind, and we have no choice whether or not we're going to pay attention to our body mind. We're either going to pay attention to it by deliberately investing time and energy and resources into making it healthier, stronger, more resilient, happier, etc., or we're going to put energy and time and resources into taking care of it being sick and injured and feeling bad a lot. That's the choice. The choice is like either we cultivate and spend our energy cultivating, or we spend our energy suffering. So which one would you rather spend your energy in? Okay. And I'm digressing a little bit, but I just want to give, because this is not actually the main topic of this podcast, but it is important for us to recognize that that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from this place where I hope is a balance of feeling it, being with it, being acceptant, being tolerant, being kind, leading with an open heart, and also grit and courage and recognizing that we have to sometimes really give a more concerted effort than the norm if we want to expect to thrive, be creative, be joyful in the face of hard times, find a way to contribute to the greater good, feel great about our life, feel in love with our life, and activate creativity, spontaneity, wisdom, all the things that we want that are all come from the thriving mode. They do not come from the survival mode. You can't expect to feel joyful or intimacy or love or the beauty of the sunset if your brain is in survival mode. It just doesn't work that way. And so it's going to take a deliberate, dedicated action. It's going to take a deliberate, dedicated efforts to overcome the cultural tendency to be in survival mode and to not be at effect of that, but instead to be at cause of your own thriving, okay? So, that being said, here's the thing that I really wanted to talk about today, which is this. It is time for us to start talking more honestly about what I believe is the number one factor. And of course, there are other factors, but I believe it is the number one factor because so many things tie into this for the mental health crisis that our children are in, and that is screen addiction. And I'm going to start by saying, parents, listen up. Or even if you're not a parent, listen up. Because the first thing that we need to deal with when we are going to address our children's mental health crisis is our own addiction. please consider, because I'm here acknowledging, I'm raising my hand right now. I oftentimes am addicted to my phone, and I feel withdrawal symptoms. I check it compulsively. I feel sometimes numb after a day, after too much time on the screen. I feel, overwhelmed. I feel anxious. It gets the best of me. I am one of the most disciplined people that I know, hands down. I'm not even going to beat around the bush around that. I am one of the most disciplined people that I know, and it dominates me. How do we expect our children to be able to cope with it? 1. 2, how do we expect them to be able to cope with it if we're not modeling it? And yeah, we get the justification, oh, well, I'm doing it for work. But really, I think we're bullshitting ourselves a lot more than we think on that. And yes, there are some things that come with adult responsibilities, and there is more time that we probably need to spend than would otherwise be justifiable for a kid. But still, we probably spend a heck of a lot of time, refreshing our emails or checking, just checking that thing that doesn't need to be checked, or scrolling in that place that doesn't need to be. We still spend a lot of time activating the neurochemistry of these, of an amount of, quote unquote, I'm going to put it in quotes, dopamine, that is impossible for our brain to withstand without creating problems for ourselves. Okay. And so when you now add that same type of stimulation into the brain of a developing child, if it gets the better of us as adults that are competent and intelligent and know what I'm talking about, and that's another important thing, is like, we know this, we all know this, but we need to now talk about it more strongly, because when we just nod our heads like, yeah, I know, screen time, yeah, and Zuckerberg, and yeah, I know, they're designed to hook us in, yeah, and we just go, we it. The same way our kids sometimes us when we're lecturing them. We it to ourselves, and we don't take powerful action. And I think we need to talk more strongly about the fact that we need to take more powerful action on behalf of our children, because things are getting worse, even though there are improvements in the world of mental health, and they're wonderful things. Like, there's less stigma, there's less shame around it, there's more talk about it, people are more open about getting support, etc. That's all positive stuff. But I'm going to challenge it and still say, but it's not really getting better. In fact, I think it's getting worse. So there are some things either about our mental health approach that aren't working as well as they could, and I certainly do think that is the case, but that's another topic for another time. But also, there are unfair fights. There are unfair fights. There are unfair fights for young people in terms of the way there's been a ridiculous distribution of wealth, skewed towards old people, and young people definitely do not have access to the same opportunities that older people in our society do. And so that there's some ways in which that is a big factor. But also this thing that's a kind of a cultural thing that is a lot bigger than we can start to influence that and hopefully move that needle in a different direction. But not if our kids are numb and dumb and basically cracked out on screens. And that's really, it really is that intense. It really is I used to work with teenagers that have screen addiction, and I was shocked when I first discovered that a kid who I absolutely know was not using, kids that I absolutely know were not using physical substance drugs like cocaine or something like that, were exhibiting the exact same withdrawal symptoms as the adults that I was working with in the intensive outpatient clinic that I was in charge of. So I was working in an intensive outpatient clinic, and I was in charge of people that were coming to IOP, which is the next level of standard of care below residential treatment. And so people that were, and I was in New Mexico where there's a pretty serious drug problem, maybe the original home base of the opioid epidemic in our country. And so people on opioids, people on crystal meth, people on cocaine, like hard-hitting stuff. And I would see 15-year-olds that from screens alone, trying to get off of using screens, going through withdrawal symptoms like night sweats, night terrors, tremors, shaking, losing weight, anxiety, depression, etc. And their brain did not recognize the difference. They were having the exact same withdrawal symptoms as the cocaine addict. That's hard stop. That's real. We need to talk about this in a real way, okay? The other thing that we need to talk about is attachment. So now this is bringing in some therapy culture, and maybe some of you are familiar with attachment theory. And basically, what is going on here, especially when kids are younger, what is going on here is that human beings are not born with the capacity to innately. We're born with the potential to be able to soothe ourselves. But that potential needs to be activated in relationship to our primary caregivers. So here's what I mean. So if when a child goes, ooh, ow, 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 and their caregiver comes over and goes, oh, there, sweetheart. Oh, yeah, you're going to be okay. That process of feeling discomfort and being soothed, which is appropriate at that young age to be soothed by another loving, attentive, caring human being, that process activates within the child through quote unquote mirror neurons and many other factors. That process activates within the child their own capacity to soothe themselves later in life. And if it is not activated, it will be pruned. The biology is kind of fierce like that. It's like you use it or lose it. You will either grow these capacities, or your brain, if you don't use them, your nervous system will prune them away, because it's sort of a fierce efficiency. And so what is happening is that when kids are bored, when they are uncomfortable, when they are anxious, oftentimes they're anxious because they are literally in withdrawal from not having stimulation. And so in order to, and then they want to reach back for the stimulation to get rid of, quote unquote, the anxiety. Well, what they're doing is that they're continuing to, one, ramp up the neurochemistry that will continue to activate the anxiety because of the pleasure-pain balance, which we'll talk about in a second. But then they're numbing the anxiety, they're numbing the discomfort, they're numbing the boredom. They're not actually feeling it and resolving it. They're not working through it. They're not self-soothing. They're not coping. They're not learning. They're not developing the infrastructure that enables them to feel their actual situation, even when it's challenging or difficult, and then regulate themselves and get themselves back to a grounded, centered state where they can move forward in their life. But not only that, they're also becoming neurobiologically attached the same way they would to a caregiver that is supposed to be, that is soothing them. Only the difference is that now they're becoming neurobiologically attached in like the psychological way to the screen as that which soothes them in times of distress. So one, they want it more, but what they're reaching for is something that does not provide real, actual soothing that sets them up to be able to be independent and interdependent beings later on in life. The way it would when a parent does that to a child, a caregiver does that to a child, they develop the internal infrastructure because they are actually co-regulating in a way that enables them to feel the discomfort and soothe it, which is different than reaching for something that has them feel the discomfort and numb it. Because you have to feel it to heal it. But when you numb it, Novocaine does not help your body heal. It procrastinates the problem. It might give you some space, and it might be a useful thing when you're, getting your tooth pulled or something like that. but it doesn't actually help. It doesn't help you heal, other than the fact that it pushes off the problem enough that your body maybe needs to get rest or whatever. But in general, you got to get to the point where you feel it so that you can heal it, where you get back to the aliveness sensations, because what is it that actually heals people? It's aliveness. It's creativity, it's joy, it's movement, it's life. And so that's why my whole kind of umbrella of work around trauma therapy, I call embodied aliveness trauma transformation, EAT, because when we are embodied in our aliveness, we automatically transform trauma. We eat it, we metabolize it in such a way that it actually makes us stronger. And this is part of the thing that I'm talking about in terms of grit. You know, we start with kindness, we start with acknowledgement, we start with feeling it, but then we then start cultivating the states of being that make us feel more alive, that make us feel more robust, that make us feel more potent, and then we metabolize our difficult experiences such that they do make us stronger. This isn't like whatever kill you makes us stronger, like macho. It's not the macho version of that. It is the very real, like present, like I am powerful and I can eat my experience and I can come back to center and I can get myself grounded and I can soothe myself and I can move forward with my life in a creative, spontaneous, liberated way that feels good, that it contributes to others, that I feel proud about, even if aside from, and especially because bad stuff happens and difficult stuff happens. But when I have developed a coping mechanism that is based on numbing, and what other adults do, so the other ways that we do this with food, we do this with Netflix, we do this with YouTube, when we go towards numbing, we just have a backlog, just like procrastination. We just have a backlog of stuff that has not been resolved, that has not been metabolized. And so you have your daily bread, you have your stuff on your plate from today, and that's difficult enough. But then because you haven't been digesting the stresses and strains of yesterday or the day before, or maybe the last 20 years, now you have a mountain. And now, of course, you feel overwhelmed. And of course, but we're setting our kids up to feel overwhelmed about everything as well because of how frequently they are hitting the numbing button, not the feel it to heal it button, not the keep your life moving forward button, not the aliveness button, not the creativity button, not the joy button, not the thriving button. They are hitting the survival button. They're hitting freeze, of fight, flight, and freeze. They are numbing their pain. They are numbing their discomfort. This is stealing their joy. It is stealing their joy. And parents, it's time to start talking about it more strongly. It's time to start taking the things away, even though they aren't going to like it, even though they're going to go into withdrawal and they're going to get angry. It's time to take the power back because it's not something that they can control. It's not even something that you can control for yourself. So how are they supposed to be able to control it? And I want more people talking about this, partly for selfish reasons, because I want every single parent in my kids' friend groups to listen to this podcast, partly because I'm tired of swimming upstream with it, and I'm tired of my kids thinking I'm the bad guy when I'm trying to protect them from something that most of their peers are already in zombie land about. And it's like, well, okay, kids. And on one hand, my children are like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I really do recognize that I'm actually different than a lot of my peers, and my attention span and my energy levels and my clarity and my focus and my sleep. And most of my friends stay up really late and they're anxious and everyone, And so my kids on one hand, know, like, oh wow, like this is actually working. What my parents are doing is actually working. And on the other hand, of course, they have like resentment, and I sometimes worry: are they going to start rebelling against me? Are they going to be? I don't want that dynamic. It's like, why parents? Why are we the weird ones? The ones of us that are like being like, no, kid, you can't have social media until you're 16 years old. No, you're not going to have a phone until you can buy it yourself with a job. We do compromise with the smartwatch, and I think it's a really good compromise. It really works for us. Our kids are still able to be hooked in enough to some of the social stuff that's going on. There's still GPS tracking, etc. There's still some of the things. And that's a really good compromise for us. But even still, we bought our kids music players, and so that they could still have their own music, and even still they found a way to hack into that to get into YouTube videos. And I, of course, normal stuff, of course, noticed that my son watched 90 friggin' YouTube videos or something the other day on his music thing. And so, but whatever. So we still have to teach how to incorporate and live in a world with technology. And it still is an unfair fight even for them, but we have to activate more discipline. So we are definitely no screens from Monday to Friday in the house. It's a 0. They do have access to video games on the weekend, but we also fill their schedule with enough physical activity and outdoor time and time in nature. And I work to create third spaces for them, that are where they can interact with their friends face to face, where they actually are seeing each other and talking and flirting and, doing all the things that kids needs to be doing. And so, had a bunch of kids over our house the other day for the Super Bowl and, all that stuff. So that we have to make an effort to provide other avenues for entertainment that are real, that are alive, that are going to contribute to their aliveness, not to their numbness. They're going to contribute to their creativity and their resourcefulness, not to zombie culture. So that we don't set them up for a life that is numb, that is frozen. And when they come out of numbness, they go into anxiety and anger and frustration. Guess what, folks? When your kids don't have access to screens, and then they get either anxious or afraid, they're in fight, flight, or freeze. They are in survival mode. And then they are reaching back for the thing that puts them back in survival mode, because there's something called the pleasure-pain balance. And so every single time you activate pleasure in your brain, we are neurobiologically designed to have a pleasure-pain balance so that we don't ever become complacent. So if you have pleasure, then your brain is going to create endogenous pain so that you will still get up and, look around what's around the corner, or find some new invention, or, find the greener grass someplace else, or that you will keep moving forward. And then when you have, but we also don't want to have too much pain, because if we have too much pain, then we also won't have motivation. So we have a balance between pleasure and pain. But we in our culture are pushing the pleasure button so much, so often, in seemingly innocuous ways that are really everywhere. And it's not really actually right. It's not joy. I'm differentiating between joy and pleasure. Joy actually comes from creativity and contribution. It doesn't come from, it's not the same as pleasure. But we're pushing the pleasure button so often that it's like a seesaw, that it guarantees that our brain will produce endogenous pain in order to try to get us balanced so that we can live, so that we can keep moving forward in our life. But what ends up happening is we push the pleasure button so much that the pain becomes so intense that we then start, and instead of recognizing that we need to bring that back into equilibrium by not pressing the pleasure button again, we try to numb the pain that is endogenously produced by hitting the more button again. One more episode, one more refresh, one more check of the likes, one more did they approve of me, one more cookie, one more piece of sugar, one more piece of bread, one more little thing, and we keep pushing the pleasure button that is guaranteeing that we're going to be in more pain. The only way to regulate that system is to say no, and this is why we have a slogan in our family that says discipline is delicious. And I'm not just being cheeky, it's actually delicious. When I say to my kids, like, I don't actually feel like I'm missing out. When I say no to something, that's uncomfortable. But then my brain starts producing endogenous pleasure, because the pleasure-pain balance works both ways. So I start feeling good. I start feeling better. When I say no to the dessert, I have a feeling of euphoria, of joy from that discipline. I'm not saying that I don't sometimes have dessert either. I'm not talking about being like a totally rigid here. I'm talking, discipline is delicious. And I use the 80% rule or the 85% rule. 80% of the time I'm on target with things. 80% of the time my kids eat really healthy. 15 or 20% of the time, who cares? You're with your friends, go do what you want, But we I think most people think that they're doing 80 80 positive, healthy routines and 15 or 20%. And it's really more like 50-50, or maybe more like 15-85 or 20-85. I think most people are kind of telling themselves a little bit of a yarn on that one. Okay? And so discipline is delicious. You saying no. We have to learn how to say. We need to develop our no power. So, one suggestion that I've heard, I think it was from Andrew Huberman, is like, say no 25 times a day. Just 25 times a day. Little no's. Like, I feel like a temptation to check my email. No, I don't really need to check my email. Say no. Say no 25 times a day. And you will start to produce endogenous pleasure from choosing that discipline. There are more intense ways to step on the pain side of, physical exercise. That's what it's doing. We do something that is difficult, that is uncomfortable, and it produces, we know this, and it produces endorphins. It produces feel-good chemicals. So, we do things like a cold challenge. It produces feel-good chemicals. We do, so choosing to do deliberately hard things, our kids need more hard things in their life. They need more challenge. They need more grit. They need more resilience. Look around. I'm not coming at this from the David Goggins, like crazy macho perspective. I'm coming at this from, I believe, a very balanced perspective. And I believe this very balanced perspective has somehow become weird or uncommon. Or like, oh my God, so that's back to that thing. Like, so there's part of me, me that is frustrated that my kids have to think that they're the weird ones too. Why are they the only ones that that eat real food most of the time? And, and go to bed in a way that is aligned with circadian rhythms and, aren't allowed to get addicted to phones. That should be the norm. So please, it takes a village. Spread the word, share this, understand that I'm not being a jerk. I understand the challenges and the difficulties. I'm an entrepreneur, challenging. Had a life-threatening illness recently, major surgery, challenging. Like, I understand stuff is fucking hard. That's why I'm saying we need the discipline. That's why I'm saying that we need the challenge. Our kids need to develop more grit. Boredom, guys, please, boredom. We drove all the way from Taos, New Mexico to Huatulco on the southern coast of Mexico, 45 hours, and then we drove from Huatulco to Boston, 45 hours approximately. No screens. What are we stealing from our kids if they're not able to be bored, if they don't have the capacity to self-regulate, if they don't learn and discover that just being in your own experiences inherently feels good? Now they're always needing something outside of themselves. So now they are just set up to be perfect consumers that always need to get something in order to feel okay. That is criminal. And I have a feeling a lot of adults don't even know what I'm talking about, which is that being in the very presence of your own aliveness and just savoring your own experience of the sensations in your body and your breath and just being here. When you train and when you exercise, discipline is delicious. And when you cultivate the living moment, it feels good. Even if difficult stuff is happening. Go back to my first episode of how to find joy, even if you have a hole in your bucket. What a gift I discovered in the aftermath of my surgery when I discovered that even with a tube in my chest, after my entire chest had been cracked open, after a incredibly odds-defying surgery, in the hospital room, in the middle of the night, with the nurse not showing up, in a bed full of sweat, cold and shivering, in tons of pain, and I am being dramatic on purpose, I surrendered and found joy. The pain didn't go away, but I discovered and really, really, really just opened up to joy for no reason. Now, I've been practicing the things that I teach people for many, 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 many years. And that might be a result of many, 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 many years of practice. But get started. Get started. And so let's just get started now. So this is a practice called extra and open attention. If you want, you could sign up for an extra and open challenge. It's a 10-day challenge that I do where you get a video that is 30 minutes long that teaches you the practice and the theory and the neurochemistry behind it and all that stuff. And then there's 10 days of 10-minute guided meditations. And so let me know if you want that. Find a way to reach out. My website or whatever, alltogether.academy. Again, that's all, A-L-L, together.academy. Not a regular.com, alltogether.academy. But for now, let's just do a mini version of it. If you're driving, do not do this. That's my disclaimer statement. Please take all necessary precautions. I know some people are listening to podcasts as they drive. So we need to have some form of cultivation of practicing what I'm talking about, the state of joy for no reason, the state of it feels good, it feels delicious just to be. Nothing added, nothing added. No, not even the stimulation of like the exercise, of even healthy things like exercise or cold challenges or whatever. Just nothing added. Just me, myself, and I. When you find and discover that, now you're empowered. Now you're free. Now you know, okay, everything else is a bonus, but I'm good. I'm okay. I feel good just being in my own skin. When was the last time you met a teenager that had that going on? We are making it almost impossible for them to feel that with their addiction to stimulation. The only way to arrive at this experience of embodied aliveness that feels inherently good is through the doorway of boredom and saying no to constant stimulation. So here we go. Get yourself a seat. Breathe in some more, and sigh. Breathe in some more, sigh. Breathe in some more, sigh. Become aware of your hands, the sensations of aliveness in your hands. Notice that as you're noticing the aliveness in your hands, you'll start to notice more. What you focus on grows, and in this case, that's a good thing because we are focusing on aliveness. Allow your noticing to spread into your wrists, into your forearms, into your elbows, into your upper arms and your shoulders, into your neck, into your face, into your head, your eyes, your nose, your lips, your tongue, your teeth, your throat, down into your chest, your back, your lower back, your abdomen, your groin, your butt, your hamstring, your thighs, your knees, your calves and shins, your ankles, the tops of your feet, the soles of your feet, and your toes. Feel the aliveness in your whole body. Feel your whole body at once. Now feel the boundary between your body and the space around your body. Just feel that space right around your body, where your body meets the environment, where your body meets the clothes and your skin, where the body meets the air around you. And just feel the aliveness of your body and then the space around your body. Feeling the space in front of your body, in the room that you're in maybe, or wherever you are. Feeling the space to the left, to the right. Feeling the space behind your body, above your head, below your body. And consider what it would be like to feel almost like a spherical awareness of a 360 degrees all around you all at once. The space all around your body, while simultaneously feeling the aliveness of your body. The aliveness sensations inside your body and the space all around your body. The aliveness sensations is extra attention. The awareness of the space all around your body is open attention. So practicing extra and open attention simultaneously. And as you continue to lean into this practice and cultivate this state of aliveness and openness, aliveness and openness, aliveness and openness, you will start to, as you explore, you will start to discover and learn and grow and create joy, openness, love, kindness, awareness, because these are the qualities of your true self when you are in thriving mode and when you are no longer in survival mode, when you are just being as you are without any additions. All right, y'all. I hope that you could touch into that. Again, it's a cultivation. It's a skill. It's a skill like any other. You know, sometimes you're going to maybe even, if that was the first time you ever do that, you might even have some kind of beginner's luck, and then you find, I go to try to do it on my own, and I don't quite feel it that well. But it's a skill, it's a cultivation, but it's the most important skill, I'd say. It's the, think about the freedom and the empowerment of knowing, like, I feel good just being. I feel good just being. Well, then everything else is a bonus. Now I don't need the stimulation. Now I don't need the gratification. I can go for it. I can enjoy it. I can explore it, discover, learn, grow, and create in the world that I live in. But now I am secure in my own sense of okay, my own sense of, yeah, I'm good. That is freedom, and there is no greater gift that we can give to ourselves or to our children. Thank you for listening. Please pass this on. It takes a village. We need to be doing this together. It's too hard for ourselves and for our kids to have to swim against the tide. Let's change the tide. Love to all. Together we thrive.
Beyond our control can take everything except our freedom to choose.